For many, if not most of our politicians and prominent voices in the media and across academia, religion is for those who reject historical truth and scientific method. It's something embraced by the superstitious and the uneducated. In reality, Christians who believe in God should be confident that in fact our faith is compatible with science and reason. While we're at it, we might spend a little time considering just how solid a rock science offers as a foundation upon which to base a belief system. Recent research suggests that good science tends to throw up far more questions than it can answer. Does it suggest that religion is best placed to answer the deepest questions we ask? And should we be much more confident and more willing to question this superficial embrace of scientism, which has become so much a part of our secular age? I'm Peter Kearney, and this is Viewpoint. I remember reading a magazine article years ago on the celebration of Christmas. I wasn't surprised to find that the author had a pretty jaundiced view of the nativity story and felt it was really just a fairy tale used to mislead children. All the usual cliches were deployed to suggest that those who believed in the reality of Christmas and the birth of the Son of God were hopeless simpletons, largely to be pitied. I was, however, surprised by one assertion that the author made. He claimed that historical truth and scientific method are the rocks on which human reason must be based. I was surprised at this because, contrary to the preconceptions of the author, this formulation is utterly and completely compatible with religion and belief. Light travels at 299,792,458 million meters per second, or 3 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. It's pretty fast. And despite what Star Trek tells us, nothing other than light can travel that fast. For generations, students of physics have been taught that the speed of light was what's known as a universal physical constant. It didn't change because it couldn't change. It was always and everywhere the same. In equations and calculations, other parts could change, but the figure for light always stayed the same. Or at least it did until 2015. In 2015, a team of Scottish scientists from the Scottish Universities Physics Alliance at Glasgow and Heriot-Watt universities made light travel slower than the speed of light. They sent photons, individual particles of light, through a special mask. It changed the photons' shape and it slowed them down to less than the speed of light. Scientists have long known that light slows down when it passes through certain materials like water or glass, but it always returns to its original speed as soon as it comes out on the other side. Incredibly, in the Glasgow experiment, the photons continued to travel at the lower speed, even when they returned to free space. To call this work groundbreaking probably doesn't do it justice. It was a stunning finding and will likely alter forever how science looks at light. In 2017, cosmologists at Arizona State University claimed that gravitational waves may have been discovered. Gravitational waves are unpredictable ripples in the space-time fabric, thought to be created by areas of extreme energy, generated by violent occurrences like black holes. This too, if proved, would be a staggering discovery, showing that gravity could no longer be explained by the general physical law put forward by Isaac Newton over 300 years ago. Newton's universal law of gravity proposed that any two bodies in the universe attract each other with a force that's directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Just like the speed of light, it's been one of those universal foundational constants in science, one of the very things that make pompous atheists say, "I believe in science because it's based on facts." Well, the researchers in Arizona appeared to have disproved those facts. Interestingly, over 100 years ago, Albert Einstein actually predicted the existence of gravitational waves in his general theory of relativity, but he never actually observed them. He thought Newton's law was wrong, he just couldn't prove it. More than 70 years after Einstein's death, the gravitational wave discovery could turn out to be one of the most scientific breakthroughs and significant ones in the history of physics. So why do these discoveries matter? Simply because they utterly demolish the false assertions constantly made by atheists, secularists, and humanists that through science we can measure and know everything in the universe, and thanks to science it can all be neatly and fully explained, leaving no need or place for a creator or deity. In other words, science is a solid rock upon which you can base your philosophy of life or your belief system. This creed, or belief system, let's call it scientism, is dealt a fatal blow by such research. It leaves atheists who've spent years saying things like, "I don't believe in religion, I believe in science," looking completely ridiculous. Their simple fairy tale theory, which says we can observe, explain, and account for everything, is of course superficially attractive, but in reality, it's an illusion. What is emerging increasingly from some fascinating and challenging research in the world of science is the extent to which the known world is in fact unknown. Unknown to us on so many levels. In truth, science is not a solid rock upon which you can base a philosophy of life or belief system. Belief in God, on the other hand, is. It's just over a year since the late Professor Emeritus Peter Higgs, formerly of the University of Edinburgh, died at the age of 94. And it's more than 10 years since he jointly won the Nobel Prize in Physics for, quote, the theoretical discovery of a mechanism that contributes to our understanding of the origin of masses and subatomic particles. The discovery of this particle, which was quickly christened the God particle by the media, brought him worldwide recognition. Despite its seemingly spiritual title, the God particle, or Higgs boson, to give it its full name, does not conclusively prove the existence of God. Rather, it conclusively proves the existence of the inexplicable. It is, in effect, a proof of doubt. Though lauded and praised by science and by many atheists who are all too eager to use any scientific discovery or development as a nail to be hammered into the coffin of religion, it does in fact present a problem for science and believers in scientism. Professor Higgs and his colleagues proposed this particle as a way to explain the existence of mass, since without it, science can neither explain why matter has mass nor why it sometimes behaves as it does. By postulating that this particle exists, that problem is solved by presuming the existence of another, until now unseen or unknown entity. This isn't the first time that science in general and cosmology in particular has had to come up with a workaround to explain the inexplicable. For example, to explain why, far from slowing down, from the moment of the Big Bang, the expansion of the universe appears counterintuitively to be speeding up. By the way, on the Big Bang theory, it was a Belgian Catholic priest, physicist and astronomer, Georges Lemaitre, who first proposed this theory. The idea that the universe is expanding from an initial primeval atom or singularity. The so-called scientific explanation for the beginnings of the universe is far from neat and mathematically exact as a calculation, which many people assume it is. Since the media narrative we're constantly exposed to proposes rigorous scientific method as the universal panacea to all our doubts and questions, the fact that it does nothing of the sort comes as a bit of a shock. That so many theories have had to emerge to fill gaps in our scientific knowledge is in itself an acknowledgement of the unknowable and the unprovable. Put another way, we don't know everything. Science is prepared to accept that things which can't be seen or detected can still have their existence proved by the measured reaction of other bodies affected by them. That's quite a spiritual formulation. All in all, these messy realities deal a real, if not fatal, blow to atheists and humanists who've invested so much of their energy in the primacy of scientism, a false creed which asserts that we can measure and know everything and that everything can be fully explained. Therefore, there is absolutely no need or place for a creator or a deity. In reality, we can't and don't know everything. There is a great deal which is unknowable and inexplicable, and always will be. We've grown up believing that such situations don't exist in the measurable and empirical world of science. Well, they do. They always have. Faith and science are far more compatible and closer to one another than we might think. It's worth taking a moment to read once again the citation which won the Nobel Prize, committed and presented to Professor Higgs. They praised him for the theoretical discovery of a mechanism that contributes to our understanding. In the end, he might not have discovered anything other than a neat way of papering over our ignorance of subatomic particles. But if we are willing to recognise and praise, quite rightly, his lifelong struggle to explain a temporal mystery, a mystery in the physical world, shouldn't we at least do the same for generations of theologians who have tried to do exactly that with mysteries of the spiritual world? Science and religion are, after all, two sides of the same coin.